And joining us now, the Trump-Vance transition team senior advisor, Jason Miller. Jason, always great to have you here. I like that title as the senior advisor for the transition team. Certainly seems like that transition is going pretty well. Everything coming up Trump, especially today.
It really is. And I don't know what you guys had done today by 9:30 a.m., but Time Person of the Year, check. Open the New York Stock Exchange, check. That's a pretty good day to get things started. But the one other thing that I would point also with regard to the economy and the economic surge and energy behind President Trump's win, this past week we had both the NFIB put out a report saying that small business optimism is through the roof. It's skyrocketing since the election. And also Chuck Robbins from Cisco, head of the Business Roundtable, put out a report saying that CEO confidence and optimism in our economy is skyrocketing through the roof. So you have Main Street and Wall Street both buoyed by President Trump's election. And as we saw today, there were a lot of people excited to see the president down at the stock exchange.
Jason, I would venture to say that maybe Time Magazine, other media outlets haven't always been so kind to President Trump over the years.
That's an understatement.
What has changed all of a sudden? What do you think?
Well, I think part of this is the recognition that President Trump won the popular vote, that he won 312 electoral votes. This race wasn't even close. He so completely dominated the Democrat opposition. I mean, he knocked out literally two different Democrat opponents during this campaign. But I think the other thing, too, is when you look at how President Trump won, you look at the coalitions, the way that he brought in new African-American, Latino-American, Asian-American voters into the party, increased his share with young voters, the way that he put together these union supporters. And so he's completely changed and upended the status quo in American politics. And that's why he has a mandate. I think that's part of the reason why the media has to respect him now. We'll see how long the honeymoon lasts, but they have to respect the mandate that he has to bring about this change to Washington. We have to do something about the ridiculous inflation, the porous border. These are all things he's going to jump into on day one.
I want to ask you about this. The president-elect was asked by Time Magazine this. Speaking of Kamala Harris, what do you think were her worst mistakes in the campaign? He answered that it was, quote, taking the assignment. I think a lot of people, even Democrats, might agree with him, Jason.
Yeah, the Democrats were a complete disaster this election cycle. But you know what? Seeing how President Trump beat Joe Biden and beat Kamala Harris, I don't know if the Democrats could have put up anyone who's going to stop President Trump from returning to the White House. And Americans saw just what we were missing over this past 4 years with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris being in office. And it had, quite frankly, disastrous results for our country. But that spirit, that optimism, that excitement with President Trump's victory, and now we're only less than 40 days away from the president coming in and being sworn back in as president of the United States, gives everybody that bit of optimism, that bit of hope that their personal finances, their personal safety is going to improve with the president being back in office.
Jason, you mentioned the economy when you first started talking here. We have another question asked by Time Magazine. They said, Mr. President, what did the Democrats not get? You said they didn't get it. What did you mean by that? Here was his answer. I thought the economy was a big factor, especially the real economy of going out and buying groceries or buying a car, buying a house, the issues and the problems Americans got to face every day when it comes to the value of their dollar. Can you expand?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the Democrats took over after President Trump, they did a couple of horrific things right away. Number one, they stopped a lot of the energy exploration, which increased the rise in fuel costs. And of course, then that everything from the gas that goes into the truck that drives around, groceries to you name it. So that played a big role. They launched a couple of spending bills that pumped all sorts of money that we didn't have into the economy, which also helped to spike inflation. But the one thing that I don't think many in the mainstream media gave quite enough attention to was what happened with these 15 to 20 million illegals coming into the country. Do you want to know why we have a housing shortage, why housing prices are going through the roof? Where are you going to put 15 to 20 million people? They're not all going to go to the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. They're going to go and obviously live in homes and live in apartments. And this is then going to impact people who are here legally, American citizens, what that's going to do to their cost of everyday housing or month to month or year to year housing. And so these number of things that the president can do with